On a freezing night, a billionaire saw a little girl steal bread and followed her into the dark. What he found wasn't theft, but a child keeping her brother alive. One decision pulled him into a battle of law, truth, and love, where walking away was no longer possible. The snow began before sunset. By the time Caspian Vale pulled his car off the frozen coastal highway, the world had already turned white and silent, like something holding its breath. Blackmere Harbor stretched out behind him, dark water, distant lights, and a wind that never seemed to stop moving. His engine ticked softly as it cooled. For a moment, he didn't move. At 41, Caspian Vale was the kind of man whose name appeared in glossy magazines beside words like visionary and untouchable. He built companies the way other people built routines efficiently, quietly, without looking back. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, the silence felt louder than success. He stepped out of the car, and the cold hit him instantly, sharp, deliberate, almost personal. His breath came out in slow clouds as he walked toward the roadside diner across the gravel lot. The neon sign flickered, open. Barely. Inside, warmth rushed over him, thick with the smell of burnt coffee and fried oil. A truck driver sat hunched over his bowl. An older couple shared a single plate in silence. No music, no laughter, just people existing. And then he saw her. She stood near the window, small and still, maybe 10 years old. Her coat was too thin for winter sleeves frayed at the edges. Dark hair fell unevenly across her face like it hadn't been brushed in days. She wasn't eating. She wasn't speaking. She was watching. Not casually, not curiously, carefully. Like every movement in the room mattered. Caspian didn't know why, but something about the way she stood there tightened something in his chest. He took a seat where he could see her clearly. Outside, the snow fell harder. Inside, Lyric Hale waited. And Caspian Vale had no idea that this quiet, forgettable stop was about to fracture his life in two. It happened in less than 3 seconds. A table in the corner had been abandoned, half-eaten meal, a cup of coffee gone cold, and a small loaf of bread left untouched beneath the dim yellow light. No one claimed it. No one noticed it, except her. Lyric's eyes moved first. A quick glance to the counter, the waitress distracted. A second glance to the truck driver, back turned. A third to the door still closed. Then she moved. Smooth, quiet, practiced. Her hand reached the table, fingers steady as if they had done this 100 times before. She folded the bread inward, pressing it flat, hiding its shape as she slipped it beneath her coat. Gone. Just like that. She didn't run. She didn't rush. She simply adjusted her jacket, smoothed the front like nothing had happened, and began walking toward the back door. Normal. Invisible. Across the room, Caspian Vale froze. He had watched deals collapse in seconds, watched millions disappear with the blink of an eye. But this was different, because this wasn't greed, this wasn't recklessness, this was precision built from hunger, from fear, from necessity. Lyric reached the door. For a split second, her hand hovered over the handle, as if she was listening, feeling, calculating one last time. Then she pushed it open. Cold air rushed inside. The door swung shut behind her, and just like that, she was gone. The waitress didn't notice. The truck driver didn't look up. The world continued, but Caspian didn't. His pulse didn't slow. His food sat untouched in front of him. And for reasons he couldn't explain, he stood up, paid the bill, and followed her into the storm. The cold outside felt different now. Sharper, colder, more real. Snow swallowed sound, turning the world into something muted and distant. Lyric's footprints were already fading by the time Caspian reached the back of the diner. For a moment he hesitated. This was not his world. Not the one he understood. Not the one money could shape. But then he stepped forward. The alley stretched ahead like a wound cut through the city, narrow, wet, lined with trash bins and broken walls. Slush soaked through the edges of his shoes as he moved deeper inside. Ahead, a flicker of movement. Lyric. She was running now. Not wildly, not blindly, purposefully. Her small body moved with urgency, one arm clutching her coat tightly against her chest. She didn't look back, because looking back wasted time, and time meant hunger. Caspian slowed. He wasn't chasing her. Not like that. He followed at a distance, careful, measured, his footsteps softened by snow. The alley turned once, then again, then ended. At the far edge stood a house that should have been forgotten. Boarded windows, peeling paint. A door hanging slightly open like it had given up trying to protect anything inside. And yet there was light. Weak, flickering, alive. Lyric slipped inside without hesitation. Caspian stopped a few steps away, the wind cutting through his coat, snow collecting on his shoulders. Then, from inside the house, he heard it. A voice. Soft. Fragile. Singing. Caspian's breath caught in his throat. It wasn't a song meant for an audience. It wasn't practiced. It wasn't perfect. It was something else. Something made in the dark. For someone who needed it. He stepped closer just enough to see. And what he saw inside that broken house would change everything. Forever. The sound didn't belong there. That was Caspian's first thought. A place like this, rotting wood, broken glass, cold, seeping through every crack, should not hold something so soft. And yet, it did. The song drifted through the doorway like a fragile thread barely strong enough to survive the wind. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even complete. Notes rose and fell unevenly as if they were being created in the moment. Not performed. Not remembered. Made. Caspian stepped closer, careful not to disturb it. Inside the room was almost empty. No furniture, no heat. Just a thin mattress against the wall, a cracked floor, and a single flickering lamp plugged into an extension cord that looked like it might fail at any second. And in the middle of it, Lyric. She knelt on the floor, her back slightly curved, her movements slow and deliberate. In her hands was the bread he had seen her take. She broke it apart. Not randomly, not greedily, carefully, counting without numbers. In front of her sat a small boy, no older than 4, Milo, wrapped in a thin, worn blanket, his cheeks pale from the cold, his fingers pink and stiff. His eyes were wide, fixed entirely on her, filled with a trust so complete, it almost hurt to witness. Lyric held out the first piece. He took it, a small bite, then another. She watched him the whole time, waiting, only when he chewed, when he swallowed, when the smallest hint of relief softened his face. Only then did she take a piece for herself. Caspian felt something inside his chest shift. No crack. Because this wasn't chaos. This wasn't desperation. This was a system. A routine. A child who had learned how to keep another child alive. And the song, it never stopped. Lyric saw him. The moment was instant. Her body changed before her expression did. Her shoulders tightened. Her hand moved subtle but precise, pulling Milo slightly behind her as she turned. Protective, instinctive, absolute. The song stopped. Silence rushed in to replace it. Caspian didn't move. Not forward, not back. He slowly raised his hands, palms open, keeping his voice low, steady. "I'm not here to hurt you." Lyric didn't answer. Her eyes moved first. His coat, his shoes, his posture. She studied him the way people study danger. Then she asked quietly, carefully, "Did I take your food?" The question hit harder than anything else could have. Caspian shook his head. No. Silence again. The wind howled faintly outside, pressing against the broken walls. Lyric didn't relax. She didn't step closer. She didn't step back. She simply adjusted her stance, anchoring herself between him and Milo. "Are you going to call someone?" she asked. "Who?" Caspian replied gently. She hesitated. "Then the police. Or people. People, not adults, not help, just people." Caspian swallowed. "No," he said. Another pause. Milo shifted behind her, pressing his face into her side. Lyric's hand moved instantly, stroking his hair in slow, steady motions, grounding him, keeping him quiet. "He gets scared when it's loud," she said, almost as an explanation. Caspian nodded. "You're good at helping him." That surprised her. Just for a second. A flicker. Then it was gone. "He hasn't been sick today," she added. The words were simple, but Caspian understood what she meant. Today was a good day. Because they had food. The cold had settled deep into the room. It wasn't just around them. It was in them. Caspian could see it in Milo's fingers, in the way Lyric's shoulders held tension like armor. He made a decision without thinking. Slowly, deliberately, he removed his coat. The warmth disappeared from his body instantly. The cold bit through his shirt. He didn't react. He stepped forward just enough, not too close, never too close, and gently placed the coat over Milo. The boy stirred slightly, then stilled his breathing, evening out, as the unfamiliar weight settled around him. Lyric's eyes followed every movement. "That's expensive," she said softly, not accusing, just stating fact. Caspian almost smiled. "It's warm," he replied. That was all that mattered. He stepped back again, giving her space. Then he reached behind him and brought forward a bag. He set it on the floor, carefully, like it might break the moment if he moved too fast. "I brought food," he said. Lyric didn't move immediately. She watched him, measured him, tested the silence. Then she stepped forward, slowly, opened the bag. Inside, soup sealed tight. Sandwiches, fruit, water, more than enough for one night. Her fingers trembled for the first time, just once, then stilled. "Thank you," she whispered. The words were small, but they were real. Caspian nodded. "I won't stay long," he said. That mattered. She understood distance, control. He turned slightly toward the door, then paused. "I'll come back tomorrow," he added. Even he hadn't planned to say it, but now it was there, hanging in the air. Lyric looked at him again, longer this time, deeper, as if searching for something beneath his words. Promises to her were dangerous things. Then she nodded. Once. "Tomorrow's colder," she said. "I know." A pause. Then quieter. "You won't tell them where we are?" Caspian met her eyes. "I won't." The answer landed. Something in her shoulders eased. Not fully. Not yet. But enough. Caspian stepped back into the snow. The wind cut sharper now. Colder. But it didn't matter. Because behind him, in a house that had no right to hold anything alive, a little girl began to sing again. And for the first time in a long time, Caspian Vale understood something he couldn't ignore. This wasn't curiosity anymore. This was responsibility, and he was already too deep to walk away. Caspian didn't remember driving home. The road blurred into nothing, just headlights, snow, and the echo of a song that didn't belong in a place like that. By the time he stepped into his house, everything felt wrong. Too warm, too clean, too quiet. The glass walls reflected soft light across polished floors. A fire burned steadily in the corner. Everything was exactly where it should be. And yet nothing felt right. He stood in the center of the room, coatless now, the cold still clinging to his skin like it refused to leave. His hands were empty. But his mind was not. Lyric kneeling on that floor, breaking bread into pieces, counting without counting, waiting for Milo to swallow before allowing herself even a bite. Caspian closed his eyes. It didn't fade. It sharpened. He walked to the kitchen, Opened a cabinet. Stopped. Closed it again. Food meant nothing now. Not like that. Not after seeing what food meant to them. He moved to his desk instead, sat down, opened his laptop. The screen lit up the room cold and clinical. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, then began to move. Child abandonment laws, emergency guardianship, temporary custody procedures. Each result felt heavier than the last, because this was no longer a moment. It was a situation, a system, a failure that had already gone too far. Caspian leaned back slowly, staring at the screen but not really seeing it. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking like a businessman. He wasn't calculating risk, or profit, or strategy. He was thinking about two children, alone, in the cold. And somewhere between midnight and morning, without ever saying it out loud, Caspian Vale made a decision. He wasn't walking away. Morning came gray and heavy. Caspian didn't go to his office, didn't answer emails, didn't take calls. Instead, he drove back. Parked across the street from the diner. Far enough not to be noticed. Close enough to see everything. Snow had piled along the edges of the road, stained with salt and time. The neon sign flickered the same way it had the night before. Nothing had changed. Except him. Lyric arrived just before noon. Same coat, same careful steps, same eyes, always scanning. She didn't sit, didn't order, didn't speak. She waited. When a table emptied, she moved in. Silent, efficient, wiping surfaces, stacking plates. Sometimes the waitress nodded. Sometimes she didn't even look. Lyric didn't mind. She wasn't there for approval. She was there for opportunity. A man left half a sandwich behind. Caspian leaned forward slightly. His breath caught. Lyric saw it. Of course she did. Her eyes flicked to the counter, then to the door, then back to the table. But this time she didn't grab it. She didn't hide it. Instead, she picked it up slowly, wrapped it in a napkin, carefully, neatly, placed it inside her coat, different. Not panic, not desperation. Planning, control, a system refined. Caspian sat back, something tightening in his chest again. This wasn't a child getting lucky. This was a child surviving, every day. When she left, he waited. 5 minutes, not less, never too close. Then he followed. Same path, same alley, same house. But this time he didn't step forward. He stayed across the street, watching. As the weak light flickered on again, as the song returned, as the pattern repeated, and in that moment, Caspian understood something clearly. This wasn't an accident. This was a life, and lives like this don't fix themselves. The second night felt colder. Not because the temperature dropped, but because now Caspian knew what that cold meant. He didn't come empty-handed. This time he came prepared. Insulated bags, hot meals, thick socks, gloves small enough for a child's hands, vitamins, medicine, things you don't think about until someone doesn't have them. The alley seemed narrower, the wind louder, the house more fragile. Lyric opened the door before he knocked. Not trust, recognition. You said tomorrow, she said. Caspian nodded. I keep my word. She stepped aside. Just enough. Inside, Milo sat on the mattress, pushing a small piece of broken plastic across the floor like it was a toy car. He looked up. His eyes widened. Then he smiled. Not cautiously, not carefully. Open. Bright. The man came back, he whispered. Something in Caspian's chest tightened so suddenly it almost hurt. Lyric knelt beside Milo immediately. Eat first, she said softly. Always that, always first. Caspian placed the bags down and stepped back, giving space, giving control. Steam rose as containers opened. The smell filled the room, warm, real, heavy. Milo clapped once, then stopped glancing at Lyric. Permission. She nodded. He ate, quickly at first, then slower as if remembering to make it last. Lyric watched him the whole time. Only when he took his third bite did she lift her own spoon. Caspian noticed everything. The discipline, the restraint, the quiet rules she lived by. "You don't have to watch us," Lyric said without looking up. "I'm not," Caspian replied. "I'm just here." She studied him again. Why? The question hung between them. Caspian could have lied, said something simple, something safe. He didn't. Because someone should be. Lyric didn't answer, but something changed. Small, almost invisible, but real. And for the first time, the room didn't feel like survival. It felt like the beginning of something else, something fragile, something dangerous, something neither of them fully understood yet. But both of them had already stepped into, without turning back. The warmth in the room didn't last long after the food was gone. Not because the heater failed, not because the wind grew stronger, but because something else had entered the story. Reality. Caspian stood just outside the broken doorway, the cold pressing against his back like a reminder. What he was doing. It wasn't enough. Food filled a night. Warmth filled a moment. But this was bigger. Inside, Lyric wiped Milo's mouth with the edge of her sleeve, careful, precise, like she had done it 1,000 times. Milo leaned into her, sleepy, now full for the first time in what might have been days. Caspian watched, and understood something with terrifying clarity. If someone else found them, someone less patient, someone less careful, they wouldn't ask questions. They would take the children, separate them, call it help. He stepped back into the alley and pulled out his phone. The screen glowed in the darkness. One name. Vivian Sloane. She answered on the second ring. "Caspian, I need legal clarity." He said, his voice lower than usual. "Hypothetical. Go on. A 10-year-old girl, a 4-year-old boy, mother deceased, father absent, no supervision, unsafe shelter." There was a pause. Then, "That's not hypothetical," Vivian said. "No." Another pause. Then her tone changed. Sharper, focused. "That's abandonment." Caspian's jaw tightened. "What happens if it's reported?" Vivian exhaled. "They're taken into state custody, emergency placement, possibly foster care." Together he asked. Silence. "Not guaranteed." That was it. That was the line. Caspian closed his eyes briefly. "Then we don't report it like that," he said. "Caspian, I'm not letting them get separated." Vivian didn't argue immediately. She understood him too well for that. "There are options," she said finally. "Emergency guardianship. But we need evidence. Documentation. This won't be clean." "I don't need clean," he replied. "I need effective." He ended the call. For a moment he stood there in the snow, breathing in the cold like it might steady him. Then he stepped back inside. Lyric looked up immediately. She always did. "You look different," she said. "I am." She didn't ask how. She waited. Caspian crouched slightly, keeping his distance. "There are rules," he said carefully, "about kids being alone." Lyric's shoulders stiffened. "They'll take Milo?" she asked. Straight to the point. Always. Caspian didn't answer immediately. He chose the truth. "If the wrong people find you, yes." Silence filled the room. Milo shifted in his sleep. Lyric's hand moved instinctively, steadying him. "They won't take him from me," she said quietly. Not a question. A statement. A boundary. Caspian met her eyes. "I won't let that happen." And this time it wasn't just a promise. It was a decision. The storm came faster that night. Not gentle, not soft, relentless. Snow slammed against the broken windows, slipping through cracks, settling into corners that had never been dry to begin with. The house was losing. Lyric knew it. She moved faster than usual, reinforcing the door with a piece of wire, checking the corners, adjusting Milo's blanket. Routine, control, survival. Caspian stood just inside the doorway watching, waiting, not forcing. "You don't have to come," Lyric said suddenly without turning. He understood what she meant. "You don't have to change anything. You don't have to stay. You don't have to care this much." "I know," Caspian replied. A beat. "But I'm going to." She stilled, just for a second, then continued working. "I have a place," he said. "Warm. Safe. Just for now." Lyric didn't respond. Milo coughed softly. The sound cut through everything. Caspian saw it then. The truth she didn't say out loud. This place was no longer survivable. "What if we can't stay?" she asked, still not looking at him. Honest. Careful. Caspian didn't rush the answer. "Then I'll find somewhere you can. Not a promise of forever, a promise of effort." That mattered more. Lyric turned slightly, finally meeting his eyes. She searched him, not for kindness, for consistency, for cracks, for lies. There weren't any. After a long moment, she nodded. Once. That was all. Milo clung to her hand as they stepped outside. The cold hit immediately harsher than before. Caspian opened the car door. Warm air spilled out. Milo gasped softly like he had stepped into another world. Lyric hesitated. One foot in the snow, one foot in something new. Then she climbed in. The door closed, and just like that, the line was crossed. The car moved slowly through the storm. Behind them, the abandoned house faded into white. Smaller, weaker, until it disappeared completely. Lyric turned in her seat, watching it vanish. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just held Milo closer. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to stop being the only one responsible. The guest house lights were already on when they arrived. Soft, warm, not overwhelming, intentional. Caspian had made sure of that. No staff, no questions, no noise, just space. Lyric noticed everything the moment she stepped inside. The floor clean, the air warm, the silence safe. Milo laughed when the heat touched his face, his shoulders relaxing instantly, as if his body finally understood it didn't have to fight anymore. Caspian knelt to help him with his shoes. Slow, careful, predictable. Lyric watched every movement. "This is temporary," Caspian said. The word mattered. Temporary meant honest. She nodded. "Where do we sleep?" He gestured toward the bedroom. 2 small beds, fresh sheets, real blankets. Nothing extravagant, just enough. Milo climbed onto one, immediately bouncing once before settling, a small smile breaking across his face. Lyric didn't move. Her hands stayed at her sides, fingers slightly curled. "It's okay," Caspian said softly. "They're yours tonight." That did it. Not tears, not words, just a shift. Her shoulders dropped, barely, but enough. Dinner came next. Warm soup, bread, real portions. Lyric served Milo first. Of course she did. But this time she didn't rush her own food. She ate slowly, carefully, like she didn't have to race against time. Afterward, Milo fell asleep almost instantly, curled under thick blankets. Safe. Lyric tucked him in, smoothing his hair, her movements softer now. Not just survival. Care. Caspian stood in the doorway. "You can sleep too," he said. Lyric shook her head. "I'll stay awake." He didn't argue. He understood. Trust didn't come from words. It came from time. So he brought a chair, placed it near the door, and sat. Not watching. Not hovering. Just there. The heater hummed quietly. The storm raged outside. Inside, something new began. Not comfort. Not yet. Something smaller, something fragile, a beginning. Lyric sat beside the bed, her hand resting lightly on Milo's blanket. Her eyes stayed open. But for the first time, they weren't searching for danger. They were watching something else. Possibility. And across the room, Caspian Vale stayed exactly where he said he would. Without moving. Without leaving. Proving something he knew she needed more than anything else. That when he said he would stay, he meant it. Morning arrived carefully, as if it didn't want to wake them too suddenly. The storm had passed, but snow still blanketed everything outside, muting the world into something soft and distant. Inside the guest house, warmth held steady, unchanged, reliable. Lyric woke first. Of course she did. Her eyes opened instantly, no confusion, no stretching, just awareness. She sat up, listened. The heater, the quiet. Milo's breathing, still there, still safe. She exhaled slowly. A knock came at the door. Gentle, not sudden. Lyric Caspian's voice came through low and calm. Can I come in? She froze for a second. No one had ever asked her that before. Permission. Yes, she said. The word felt unfamiliar. Caspian entered, carrying a tray, pancakes, fruit, warm milk, cocoa. The smell filled the room, thick and impossible, like something from a life she had never actually lived. I wasn't sure what you liked, he said. So I guessed. Lyric didn't answer right away. She stared at the tray, then at him. Why here, she asked. Why not the kitchen, so you don't have to get up and work first? The words landed slowly. You're not on duty. That took longer. Milo woke at the smell, sitting up instantly. Food, he whispered, smiling. Lyric nodded once. Permission. Always. He ate quickly at first, then slower. No one stopped him. No one took it away. Caspian sat nearby, quiet, giving space. After breakfast, he placed a folder gently on the table. Lyric's body tensed immediately. What is that paperwork? Caspian said. It helps keep you here. She didn't touch it. What kind of paperwork? The kind that tells people you're not alone anymore. Lyric looked at him. Sharp, focused. And if they don't believe it, Caspian held her gaze. Then we make them. That was the first time she saw it. Not kindness, not charity. Resolve. That mattered more. Later that morning, Caspian stepped outside, phone pressed to his ear. Vivian, he said, breath visible in the cold. Start everything. Already ahead of you, Vivian replied. I'll need statements, timeline, proof of living conditions. You'll have it. This won't be quiet, Caspian. I don't need quiet. A pause. Then I need them safe. Inside, Lyric watched through the window. She didn't understand all the words, but she understood one thing. Things were changing, and this time not in a way that would leave them behind. It came in the afternoon. Unexpected, uninvited, necessary. Caspian's phone buzzed against the kitchen counter. Unknown number. He stared at it for a second, then answered. Caspian Vale. Silence. Then a man's voice. Tight, unsteady. This is Gideon Hale. Everything slowed. Caspian turned slightly, glancing through the window. Lyric sat at the table helping Milo line up cereal pieces in careful rows. She corrected him gently when he placed one out of line, her movements patient, precise. They told me you have my children, Gideon said. Caspian's grip on the phone tightened. They're safe, he replied. A breath on the other end. Sharp. They're not yours. Caspian didn't react. They're where they should be. Silence stretched. Longer this time. I didn't mean for this to happen, Gideon said finally. Caspian's voice remained calm. Intent doesn't change reality. Another silence. Then they were supposed to stay with me? Gideon added, weaker now. It was just temporary. Temporary. Caspian repeated quietly. His eyes didn't leave the window. They were living in an abandoned house. That landed. Hard. On the other end, something broke. I didn't know, Gideon whispered. Caspian closed his eyes briefly. You didn't look. No anger, no raised voice. Just truth. And somehow that hurt more. The call ended without resolution, without agreement, without closure, just reality acknowledged. Inside, Lyric had stopped moving. She wasn't looking at Milo anymore. She was watching Caspian, waiting. He walked back in slowly, sat across from her. He called, he said. She nodded. I know. He paused. He knows where you are. Another nod. Is he angry? She asked. Confused, Caspian said. And afraid. Lyric absorbed that. Quiet, careful. He was like that after Mom died, she said. Her voice didn't break. It didn't need to. And the woman, she added. Caspian chose his words carefully. She doesn't want responsibility. Lyric exhaled softly. Neither did he. Not bitter, not loud, just final. Milo looked up, confused. Lyric smiled faintly. Nothing, she said. And just like that, she protected him again. Even from the truth. The room was neutral. On purpose. No luxury. No intimidation. Just a table, 4 chairs. Soft lighting, controlled space. Caspian arrived early. Of course he did. Vivian sat beside him reviewing documents, her movements precise and efficient. This is where it shifts, she said quietly. I know. The door opened. Gideon Hale stepped in. He looked older than he should. Shoulders slightly hunched, eyes tired. Not cruel, not angry, just broken. Behind him walked Colette Voss. Perfect coat, perfect posture, perfect indifference. She didn't look around. Didn't acknowledge the room. Didn't acknowledge Caspian. She sat, crossed her legs, waited. The mediator spoke first. Formalities, structure, order, then Gideon. I didn't know what to do, he said, voice tight. After she died, everything just stopped. Caspian didn't interrupt. He let him speak. I thought I could fix things, Gideon continued. Get stable, then bring them back. While they lived in a ruin, Caspian asked. Not harsh, not loud, but direct. Gideon flinched. I didn't know, he repeated. You didn't look, Caspian said again. The words landed harder this time. Colette shifted slightly, annoyed, not affected. They were difficult, she said suddenly. The boy cries. The girl doesn't listen. Vivian's pen stopped. Caspian turned slowly. The girl, he said, voice calm, kept your household running while you decided she was inconvenient. Colette's expression didn't change. They weren't my responsibility. Silence. Heavy. Thick. Gideon looked down, didn't argue, didn't defend them. That said everything. Vivian leaned forward. Let's stay with facts, she said. She outlined it clearly. No emotion. No exaggeration. Mother deceased. Father absent. Unsafe living conditions. Minor caring for another minor. When she finished, no one spoke. Gideon covered his face, hands shaking. I didn't know, he said again. Caspian leaned forward slightly. This time his voice changed. Not colder, sharper. You didn't have to know, he said. You just had to show up. That was the moment. The one that broke whatever illusion remained. The mediator shifted. We will proceed to court review, she said. Formal? Final? Unavoidable? As the meeting ended, Gideon didn't look at Caspian, didn't look at anyone. He just sat there for a moment, alone. Colette stood immediately, walked out without a word. Caspian remained seated, still, controlled. But inside, everything had shifted. This was no longer about helping, no longer about temporary safety. This was a fight, and he had already chosen his side. The courthouse didn't look intimidating. That was the first thing Lyric noticed. No towering gates, no shouting crowds, no flashing lights. Just a gray building, still and ordinary, standing at the edge of Blackmere Harbor like it had nothing to prove. But the moment they stepped inside, everything changed. The air felt different, heavier, like every word spoken here stayed, like every decision mattered longer than it should. Lyric's hand tightened around Milo's. Not enough to hurt him, just enough to anchor him. He leaned into her automatically, his small fingers curling into her sleeve, thumb brushing against the fabric like he needed to feel something constant. Caspian walked beside them. Not ahead, never ahead, and not behind. Equal. Steady. The hallway stretched, long and quiet footsteps echoing against polished floors. People passed them, lawyers, clerks, strangers, but no one looked too closely. To them, this was just another case, another file, another decision. But for Lyric, this was everything. They entered the courtroom. It was smaller than she expected. Wood-paneled walls, a raised bench, a flag standing still in the corner. No drama, no spectacle, just space and silence. Lyric sat. Her feet didn't quite touch the ground. She noticed that. But she didn't move them, didn't swing them, didn't fidget. Stillness was safer. Stillness meant control. Milo sat beside her, his head resting lightly against her arm. He didn't understand where they were. He only understood she was here. So it was okay. Caspian sat on her other side. Close enough, not overwhelming, just present. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The sound of chairs scraping against the floor felt louder than it should have. Lyric followed, then sat again. The room settled, and the case began. No raised voices, no dramatic accusations, just facts, spoken clearly, coldly. Mother deceased. 2 months prior, father absent. Children found living in unsafe conditions. No supervision, no adequate shelter. Each sentence landed like a weight. Not loud, but heavy. Lyric stared forward. She didn't look at Milo, didn't look at Caspian. She just listened. Across the room, her father sat. Gideon Hale. He looked different in here. Smaller, like the room itself had pressed something out of him. His shoulders were rounded, his hands clenched together. Not strong, not steady, just holding on. Beside him sat Colette. Perfect posture, perfect expression, unmoved. She didn't look at Lyric, not once. And somehow that hurt more than anything else. The judge asked Gideon to speak. He stood slowly, his voice trembled. I failed them, he said. The words hung in the air. No one interrupted. I didn't know how to grieve and be a parent at the same time. Silence. The judge watched him. Not unkindly, but without softness. This wasn't a place for comfort. This was a place for truth. Gideon sat down. Caspian's name was called. He stood, calm, controlled. He didn't mention his companies, didn't mention money, didn't mention what he could give them. He only spoke about what he had seen. A child, he said, voice steady, feeding another child before feeding herself. The room stilled. A song he continued, used not for comfort, but to keep fear quiet. Lyric's fingers tightened slightly. Just slightly. A winter night survived without heat. He paused. Not for effect, for control. They weren't waiting for help, he finished. They had already learned not to expect it. Silence followed. Not empty. Full. The judge nodded once, then looked down at her notes, and then she asked the question, the one no one could avoid. Would the child like to speak? The room changed, subtly, but completely. Caspian turned his head slightly toward Lyric. Not pushing, not guiding, just present. Only if you want to, he said quietly. Lyric didn't answer right away. Her hand tightened around Milo's. He looked up at her, confused, trusting, always trusting. She exhaled slowly. Then she stood. Her feet hit the floor. This time she felt it, the weight of it, the reality of it. A clerk adjusted the microphone. Too high, then lower. A small stool was placed beneath her feet. The sound of it scraping the floor echoed too loudly in the room. Lyric climbed onto it, carefully. She didn't rush, didn't hesitate. She just stood. Her hands trembled at first, barely, then steadied. She looked forward, not at the judge, not at her father, at the space between them, and in that space everything waited. The room held its breath. Caspian didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe too loudly, because he understood this moment didn't belong to him. It belonged to her. And whatever she said next would change everything. The room didn't move. It didn't breathe. It waited. Lyric stood on the small wooden stool, her fingers curled lightly at her sides. For a moment she said nothing. Not because she didn't have words, but because she had too many. The judge leaned forward slightly. "You can take your time," she said gently. Lyric nodded. Then she spoke. "My name is Lyric Hale." Her voice was soft, but it carried. "I'm 10. A pause. She swallowed. "I take care of my brother." She glanced down. Milo was looking up at her wide-eyed thumb pressed lightly against his lip. When their eyes met, he smiled, small, trusting, certain. That was enough. "His name is Milo," she continued. "He's 4. Her voice steadied. "When my mom died," the words slowed, careful, measured. Everything got quiet. No one moved. No one interrupted. "My dad was sad," she said. "I tried to help." A small breath. "I cleaned. I stayed quiet. I made food when I could." Across the room, Gideon's head dropped. Lyric didn't look at him. Not yet. Then there was someone else. Her eyes flicked briefly toward Colette. Just once. She didn't like noise. The silence in the room deepened. "Milo cries when he's hungry." Her voice softened there. Not weaker, just honest. And I couldn't make him stop. A shift, barely noticeable, but it moved through the room like a ripple. "We didn't get yelled at," Lyric said. "We didn't get hit." Another pause. "We were just not wanted." That landed, heavier than anything before it. Caspian felt it in his chest. Sharp, unavoidable. Lyric took a breath, then continued. "So we left. Simple. Final. I knew where people left food," she added. "No pride, no shame, just fact." The judge's pen had stopped moving. "And Mr. Vale?" she asked gently. Lyric turned then, for the first time fully, toward Caspian. Her eyes didn't waver. "He didn't ask me what I did wrong," she said. The room stilled again. "He didn't get mad." Another breath. "He didn't tell me to be quiet." Her fingers tightened slightly. "He made sure Milo ate." A pause. Longer now. "He made sure we were warm." Her voice dropped just a little, but somehow it reached further. He stayed. That word echoed. Not loud, but deep. The judge leaned forward slightly. "What do you want, Lyric?" she asked. The question hung in the air. Fragile, dangerous. Lyric didn't answer right away. She looked down at Milo again. His small hand reached up toward her instinctively. She took it, held it. Then she looked forward, clear, certain. "I want my brother to be safe." The room exhaled, but she wasn't done. Not yet. The judge waited. "And you?" she asked. Lyric hesitated, just for a second. Then she said it, quietly, but without doubt. "I want to stay where he sleeps, warm." Silence. Complete. Even Gideon broke then, a quiet shaking collapse into himself. Colette didn't move, didn't react, didn't matter, because in that moment, nothing else mattered. Lyric stepped down from the stool, slowly, carefully. She didn't look around, didn't wait for approval. She just returned to her seat, took Milo's hand again, and held on, as if that alone was the only answer that had ever mattered. Silence held the room together. Not empty silence. Not comfortable silence. The kind that comes when something true has just been said and no one can pretend they didn't hear it. Lyric sat down slowly, her hand still wrapped around Milo's. He leaned into her side, unaware of what had just happened, but sensing something had changed. Something important. Across the room, Gideon didn't move. His shoulders shook once, barely, but enough. Enough to show the weight had finally reached him. Colette remained still, untouched, unmoved, as if none of it had anything to do with her. The judge closed the file in front of her. The sound was soft, but final. "I've heard enough," she said. No anger, no raised voice, just certainty. The courtroom straightened instinctively. People shifted, pens stilled, even the air seemed to settle. Judge Eleanor Wren looked first at Gideon, then at the empty space in front of her, then at Lyric. Her expression softened, only slightly, but enough to be seen. This court recognizes, she began, her voice calm and steady, that the children in question have been left without adequate care, supervision, and protection. Each word landed with precision, measured, deliberate. The mother is deceased. A pause. The father has failed to provide a safe and stable environment. Another pause. Longer this time. The current living conditions prior to intervention were unacceptable. No embellishment, no judgment in tone, but the meaning unavoidable. Gideon closed his eyes, didn't argue, didn't speak, because there was nothing left to say. The judge continued, based on the evidence presented and the testimony given. Her eyes flicked briefly toward Lyric. This court finds it in the best interest of the children to remove them from their current custodial arrangement. A breath moved through the room. Not relief, not yet, just movement. Temporary guardianship is granted to Mr. Caspian Vale, effective immediately. Caspian didn't react outwardly, but something inside him shifted. Locked, set. This arrangement will remain in place pending final adoption review. The word lingered. Adoption, real, permanent, possible. Until that time, the judge added, no party may remove the children from Mr. Vale's care without court approval. Final, clear, protected. The judge paused, then closed the file completely. A soft click. That is the ruling. It was done. No gavel, no dramatic gesture, just a decision that changed everything. Lyric didn't move at first. She didn't smile, didn't cry. She just sat there holding Milo's hand, as if waiting for something to be taken back. For someone to say, no, this isn't real. Caspian turned toward her slowly. Their eyes met. She searched his face. Not for emotion, for truth, for confirmation, for something solid. Caspian gave a single small nod, and quietly, so only she could hear. He said, "You're home." That was it. No speech, no explanation, just truth. Something in Lyric's shoulders broke then. Not collapse, release, the kind that comes when something you've been holding too long finally lets go. Milo clapped suddenly. Once, twice, loud in the quiet room. "I'm hungry," he whispered. The timing was imperfect, innocent, perfect. Lyric let out a small breath that almost turned into a laugh. Almost. Outside, snow fell softly, not sharp, not violent, just steady, gentle. The kind of snow that didn't threaten, that didn't erase, that didn't hide. For the first time, it felt like something else. Not cold, not danger, not survival, but a beginning. The courthouse doors closed behind them with a quiet click. No echo, no applause. Just final. The cold met them immediately outside, but it didn't feel the same anymore. Snow drifted slowly through the air, soft and patient, settling over the steps like a clean beginning. Lyric held Milo's hand the way she always did. Firm, protective. But something in her grip had changed. It wasn't fear anymore. It was habit. Caspian walked beside them. Not guiding, not leading, just there. Milo looked up at the sky, catching snowflakes on his mitten, laughing softly like he had discovered something new. Lyric watched him, then glanced back, just once, at the courthouse, as if expecting it to call them back. It didn't. "You don't have to look back anymore," Caspian said quietly. She didn't answer right away. I don't know how she admitted. Honest. Unfiltered. Caspian nodded. Then we'll learn. That was enough. The drive home was quiet. Milo fell asleep halfway there, his head resting against Lyric's shoulder, his breathing slow and even. For the first time, she didn't sit rigid. She leaned into him, let herself rest. Outside, the world passed by in soft blurs of white and gray. Inside the car, there was no urgency, no hunger, no danger, just space. When they arrived, the house stood warm against the winter nightlights glowing softly through the snow. Not overwhelming, not distant, waiting. Lyric stepped out slowly, not because she was unsure, but because she was adjusting to something new, something unfamiliar, something she had never allowed herself to believe in before, staying. And this time, no one was going to make her leave. Morning arrived quietly, like it was careful not to disturb anything. Soft light slipped through the curtains, warming the edges of the room without demanding attention. Outside, the snow had settled into a smooth, untouched blanket. Inside, everything stayed warm. Lyric woke first. Not because she had to, because she always did. Her eyes opened slowly this time. No jolt, no panic, just awareness. For a moment, she didn't move. She listened. The heater, the silence, Milo's breathing, still steady, still safe. She sat up, pulling the blanket slightly closer around him out of instinct. But her hands didn't rush this time. They lingered. Then a knock. Soft, gentle. Lyric Caspian's voice. "Can I come in?" She blinked. That still felt strange. "Yes," she said. He entered carrying a tray. Pancakes, warm milk, fruit, simple things. But to her, impossible. "I thought we could start here," he said. "No pressure, no expectations, just an offering." Milo woke almost instantly at the smell. "Pancakes," he whispered, eyes lighting up. Lyric nodded. He didn't wait, didn't hesitate. He reached, grabbed, ate messy. Carefree. Lyric flinched. Just slightly, waiting for correction, for a hand to stop him, for something to be taken away. But nothing happened. Caspian only smiled faintly and handed Milo a napkin. "That's what it's for," he said. Lyric watched that moment closely, studied it, turned it over in her mind, like she didn't quite believe it was allowed. After breakfast, Milo slid off the bed and ran toward the window. "Snow," he said. He turned, excitement written across his entire face. "Can we go outside?" Lyric's answer came instantly. "No, it's cold, it's yes," Caspian said gently. She stopped, looked at him, confused. "It's okay," he added. "We'll get you ready." Boots. Real ones. Warm. Clean. He placed them in front of her. Lyric stared. "We can't pay for these. You don't have to." That answer. It didn't come with explanation. It didn't need one. Outside, Milo stepped into the snow like it was something magical. He laughed. Loud. Free. Lyric stood at the doorway. Frozen, not by the cold, by the moment. Then slowly. She stepped forward. One step, then another. Milo turned, saw her, and ran back toward her with a grin. She caught him instinctively. And for the first time, her laugh slipped out. Small, surprised, real. Caspian stood back, watching, not interrupting, because he understood something important. This was where it began. Not the courtroom, not the paperwork, not the promises, but here, in a quiet morning, in the snow, where a child learned she didn't have to survive every moment. She could live it. The final papers arrived on a quiet afternoon. No ceremony, no announcement. Just a simple envelope placed carefully on the kitchen table. Caspian opened it slowly, read every page, signed where he needed to. His hand didn't shake, but something inside him did. When he finished, he set the pen down and looked up. Lyric stood near the doorway, Milo beside her lining up toy cars along the floor, completely unaware that his world had just changed forever. "It's done," Caspian said. "Simple, clear, real." Lyric didn't move at first. She just stood there, taking it in. "Does this mean—" she began, then stopped. He waited. "We don't have to leave." Her voice was quieter than usual, not guarded, not sharp, just careful. Caspian stepped closer, not too close, just enough. "It means," he said softly, "you don't have to run anymore." That was it. Not a speech, not a promise dressed in words, just truth. Lyric's breath caught slightly. A small sound, almost nothing, but enough. That night felt different. Dinner was louder. Milo talked about building a snowman, his hands moving wildly as he explained something that didn't quite make sense but didn't need to. Caspian listened. Fully. Like it mattered. Because it did. Afterward, he handed Lyric a small box. She opened it slowly. Inside, a simple silver pendant. A circle, unbroken. "What is it?" she asked. "A reminder," he said. "Of what? That you belong somewhere." Lyric closed her fingers around it, held it tightly. Later, Milo grew sleepy. His words faded, his movements slowed. "Song," he whispered. Lyric froze for a second. Old instinct. Old role. Then she nodded. Not because she had to. Because she wanted to. She sat beside him and sang, the same soft melody from that broken house. But now it didn't sound like survival. It sounded like home. Milo fell asleep halfway through. Safe, warm, without fear. Lyric stayed there a moment longer, watching him. Then she stood, turned. Caspian was in the doorway, quiet, still. "There?" She hesitated. Just a second, then softly, clearly, without doubt. "Thank you, Dad." The word settled into the room, not heavy, not forced, just right. Caspian didn't look away, didn't speak immediately. He simply smiled. The kind of smile that comes from something finally finding its place. "Good night, Lyric." Outside, the snow had stopped. Inside, the warmth remained. And for the first time, it wasn't temporary. It wasn't fragile. It wasn't something that could be taken away. It was something they had built. Together. And this time, it would stay. Forever. Did this story move your soul? Share your feelings in the comments and rate it from 1 to 10. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, then tap the bell icon so you never miss a new story. Click the end screen to watch another heartfelt video. See you in the next story.